Alright, so now we come on to part 4 of our Useful God series. And for part 4 of the Useful God series, what now? Okay, for part 4 of our Useful God series, we will now come into looking at, yeah, looking at the third function of the Useful God. So in the first part, we look into the Useful God to be the one to restore. Second, we look into the one to regulate. And now we will look into the one to medicate. So we are here to look into to medicate. So to medicate, medication here is to address the imbalances, is to address the sickness within the chart. And therefore, as we have sicknesses within the chart, imbalances within the chart, that's where the useful God plays the role to medicate. So to medicate, number one, we need to understand the two key conditions for a useful God to be useful. First of all, the useful God must be present. If the useful God is present, the useful God must be real. It must be real. So if it is absent, then it may be considered to be a void God. So if it is a void God, it may arise a problem that the void God may be harmful. It may be harmful. But the real one may not necessarily be good as well, and therefore not automatically all the time. So as we look into the chart as usual, we always consider that the first point will be the day master, and the second point will be now the useful God. All right, so now let's take a look into a particular case, a case of the eldest son of the third generation, born to the richest person on earth at that time. So during the time when he was born in the 50s, he was born into the family of Getty, under John Paul Getty, and that was known to be the richest man in the world. And so born into great wealth, we find that John Paul the Third, and this would be his natal chart without the hour. And so once again, as we look into reading for the chart, once again, where do we start? We start with the day master. And so what do we find? We find a Yeatwood day master. A Yeatwood day master born in the month command, the month pillar, the month of the dog. The month of the dog is the month of autumn. And the autumn where metal becomes big or prosperous. And so wood goes against metal. Therefore, the day master is born out of season. And there's no yeatwood to root except for a jiawood. Therefore, there is partial rooting. Partial rooting. And for yeatwood, that counts because wood can grow roots and roots can bind the jia. Therefore, we do find that yeatwood finds jia to be useful. And therefore, slightly partial rooting. But other than that, we do consider that this day master is weak. This is quite a very weak day master. Alright, so the structure, as we know, would then be direct wealth. Well, can you see direct wealth? You can find direct wealth to be here, Wu Earth, Wu Earth, Wu Earth. So there'll be wealth everywhere. Now, of course, we often are envious of people who are born with wealth side by side. For truly, this is a chart for those who are among the wealthiest. And needless to say, there is no need to read a chart of this person to know that he was born into wealth. As he was born, into the family of the richest man in the world, John Paul Getty. And therefore, here, the eldest grandson uh, has this particular chart. The fasa will be a hurting officer. And hurting officer will be the pink fire. That is a heavenly virtue, one of the shensha for this person. All right. And so now we have gone through his fasa, hurting officer, rebellious, agent of change, goes against anti-establishment, and hurting officer should not see direct officer. For hurting officer, see direct officer calamity. Therefore, here hurting officer meeting direct officer or sitting on direct officer, this would be an inauspicious pillar. So it's an inauspicious pillar. But at least here the monkey represents the querent. All right. Now let's take a look into the schedule and to find out what will be the useful god for a Yitwood day master born in October. So the schedule of a Yitwood day master born in the month of the dog will then find Kuei water and sin metal. Kuei water and sin metal. Now the thing about Yitwood, now wood element is pretty needy. So we do find that wood people tends to need a lot more elements. I mean, look at Jia. Look at the number of useful gods that this Jia day master requires. In fact, it is because of Jia that the useful god, when we do programming, when we write down the chart, we must allow 5 spaces for it, which we don't really need for any other element. So maybe keng a little bit there, but that's just for it. So anyway, we do find that wood is quite needy. It needs a lot of elements, and here we have the Kuei water and the sin metal. And so as you look into the chart, do we find Kuei water? Do we find Kuei water? And here we do see that Kuei water is absent. That's right. So Kuei water will become the white god. But we do find sin. So we do have a sin metal. And the sin metal is a useful god according to the schedule. According to the schedule. So the schedule is often where we start. The schedule is often where we start, but the schedule is not where we end. We don't end in the schedule. It's just a starting point for us to take a look. Now, sometimes we may find that there might be useful gods outside this schedule. Outside. Or sometimes those that are inside here are not to be considered to be useful. So we cannot just look at the schedule automatically and then consider, well, that's it. No? It has sin metal and sin metal has this. Now the thing about the chart here, of course, is now wood. As you know, wood is the only element of the 5 elements which are living. It's a living organism. It's an element that is of living element rather than metal or water or wood. Those are just very seemingly physical element, but will be a life element, biological. So wood needs fire. It needs a sun, because a plant needs a sun, so it has a pink fire. So this is going to be quite useful. We find that wood, of course, needs earth. She earth would be good. Not really wood earth, but well, looks like it has to do with what it is because it needs earth to grow. And Yeatwood welcomes Jia. Yeatwood welcomes Jia because it can then climb over it like a parasite. And definitely, Yeatwood needs water. And therefore here, water definitely would feed or nourish the Yeatwood. And so the problem arises that Kuei water would be useful. It would be useful. Especially in autumn, especially in autumn at the tail end of the season where water would be a requirement. But unfortunately, of course, Koi water is absent. As Koi water is absent, Koi water is a white god. And if it is a white god, just like Nelson Mandela, just as some of the charts that we have seen, the arrival of Koi water can become inauspicious now. Therefore, it may be a tendency that since it is absent from the chart, it has no affinity, it then may not welcome. And so it may become a part where it is negative. It is negative. And so that's problem number one. So problem number one, there is a white god, and that we may see that when this day master meets Kueh water, it would not be favorable, or at least it has no affinity. So um, it will be either no affinity, so there'll be no affinity with this element, or it can be harmful. Therefore, a white god will have to be considered. But once again, it is not all the time that all white gods are immediately harmful or negative. We will really have to look at the chart. And here we do find that the chart here, if we consider the basic level, once the day master is weak, once the day master is weak, what will be the favorable? What will be the favorable element? The favorable elements for a weekday master will be the element that supports or produces or provide for the day master, which is the resource. And the resource and also the self. So what is the resource here? The resource is water. And then the self is wood. Because when the day master is strong, then of course it will be the other way. So unfavorable. So what will be the unfavorable elements? The unfavorable elements will then be the elements that weakens it, which will be your output, which will be your wealth, and that will be also your officer or your servant killer. Alright, so here we do find that we have a weekday master surrounded by wealth. And if the wealth is unfavorable, then this will be a chart where can see money but cannot touch. Can see money but cannot touch, as it is. Right now, the second problem that we may find is the sin metal. The sin metal is useful to weaken earth, to weaken the earth. And the sin metal is used to produce the water. But the sin metal here is evidently found in the graveyard. Therefore, we do have the sin metal, and the sin metal is 8. Now, naturally, a lily plant that is weak and unrooted would not want to see servant killing, the pair of scissors that can cut it. So this sin metal along the schedule may give you the impression that it is actually favorable. I mean, you just look at the schedule. If you look at the schedule and say, okay, we have Yeetwood and Yeetwood born in the month of date. Yep, there you go. This is 2. 1 is white, so this must be it. So that will be a bit more, a bit more so-called basic level of looking into it and say, oh, okay, sin metal must be very favorable. But this sin metal is weak. So we must remember our 2 conditions. So the 2 conditions is that useful God must be present and useful God must not be clashed or combined away. Otherwise, it will be weak. So therefore here we do find that there is sickness in this chart. There is imbalances in this chart. So when this chart has sicknesses and imbalances, then it may encounter problems. And the problems that it encounters might be when it sees on the arrival of the Kuei water and also the arrival of the 7 killing. Because here we find that the 7 killing is strong. It's strong because this is autumn, the season of autumn. And so let's take a look into how the life of this person has come to pass. How the life has come to pass. When in a way we see that his parents divorced in 1964 when he was 8 years old. So we take a look into the year 1964. So 1964 is the year of the Jia Chen. The year of the Jia Chen is the year of the Rockwell good blade. The Rockwell good blade, because wood sitting on wood, yang wood sitting on yang wood, is the Rockwell good blade to the Yi wood day master. And so in the Rockwell good blade, one of the worst year for amongst the 60 years, I mean, we have Fan Yin, we have Fu Yin, we have Rockwell good blade. These three harmful pillars to the day master. And so the Rockwell good blade pillar on the dragon year is a year where the parents divorce. So for an 8-year-old, that would be quite dramatic and quite traumatic for this young boy here. All right, so therefore we can consider what happened to the person. And when the person when we look into the luck pillars, we see that the 3-year luck pillars are essentially, they are essentially the water luck pillar. Now, water would be favorable. We can find that water is favorable because this is a weekday master and it may see. But unfortunately, of course, unfortunately for this day master, that will be too simplified to observe. We'll see that in the coming to crossover to luck pillar at 11th will be the rat, which carries the Kuei water. So the arrival of the Kuei water, in this manner, and also of course with the Keng, which is the direct officer, and direct officer meeting hurting officer. So therefore we will say that when hurting officer meets direct officer, calamity will ensure. So therefore hurting officer meeting direct officer is a negative event. And of course the arrival of the Kuei water, the indirect resource, which is to the person the white god, the white god. So this Kuei water is the white god. Right, so here in the year of the Kuei water, Kuei Chou, in the year of the Kuei water, in 1973, he was kidnapped. He was kidnapped by the Italian mafia. He was kidnapped by the Italian mafia, and that of course will become a significant effects to his life. And of course the Italian mafia demanded ransom. They call up his mother. The mother said, "Look, I'm divorced. I'm estranged from the rich family." And then they call up the father, John Paul Getty II, which of course then later refer to the grandfather, which is John Paul Getty, where basically that's where the money is. The grandfather controls the wealth of the family. And shockingly to the world, the grandfather refused to pay the ransom. Refused. The grandfather was well known to be quite a miser. So at that time, the 80-year-old grandfather says, "Look, I got 14 grandchildren. If I pay now, I will immediately have 14 kidnapped grandchildren. So no." Then later, of course, he bargained, asked for discount, and the kidnappers agreed for a lower amount, and yet he refused to pay. And he told the son, "This is not. I'm not giving you the money. This is a loan, huh, to which you have to pay back with 4% interest." Uh, and during that period, of course, during that period, the kidnappers were for pressuring the kidnappers pressured them to pay the money, and they cut off his ear in order to deliver it as a form to pressure. So months later, he was released, and that was, of course, a tremendous time in his life that has shook him. It was very, very traumatic. And because he was so traumatic for such a young 17-year-old teenager, he has later fallen into alcoholism, drug addiction that's ravaged his life. And so by taking drug, you can find that in the year 1981, he suffered a stroke after taking some drugs mixed with alcohol that's caused his liver to fail, leaving him quite a bit disabled and partially blind. So 1981 was where another very negative event that happens in his life. 1981 will be a period in which it will be the sin metal, especially also in the sin year. In the sin year. So in the luck pillar for the sin chou, and also of course to the sin 7 killing. So sin metal represents 7 killing. And of course, in the year of the 7 killing, annual luck pillar, that's where he suffered a particular stroke. And from there, he has been pretty much disabled for a very long time. And over the period, we do find that he died. He died in the year 2011. In the year 2011, he died in the year of the sin metal. In the year of the sin metal, 7 killing, which of course is in the luck pillar of Jia Chen. What is the Jia Chen luck pillar again? The Jia Chen luck pillar will be the rock wealth, gold blade luck pillar. And so he died in the 7 killing year on the rock wealth gold blade luck pillar. And so here we do find that that has become the tragic life of John Paul Getty III, the grandson to the richest person in the world at that time. Okay, so two things to come to mind. Two things to come to mind. If we observe to this chart, what were the two strong influencing elements that that coincides with all the various tragic moments of his life? We do find that one would be the Kwe water, the arrival of the Kwe water, and secondly, the arrival of the Sin Man. These two elements to which it has come to so-called inflict negative events on this chart. Okay, so as we look into Medicaid, what do we want in medication? Now, in medication, of course, we find that if we can identify the sickness in the chart, we identify the imbalances. Now, the imbalances normally is when the day master is overtly too strong or overtly too weak. And here we do find that in this overly too weak chart, this chart suffered from a bit of a sickness. The sickness would be where, if it is the other way around, if it is the Kwe water that is present, and the sin metal that is void. So perhaps the life can be different. Or even now we come into medicate. So medicate now refers to how can we remedy this. Now there are two remedies that will be required. One remedy is the missing element, to which we will cover today. We'll cover what are the remedies for missing element. And then in the next sharing, we will then cover what will be the remedy for the presence of a harmful element. Therefore, there are two. Okay, so now here in the remedy, we can come to the part where the remedy now will be to overcome and what can or should be in the past. Now, as we look into the remedies for the missing element, now so therefore it's a very big if, always remember that. Sometimes I do find feedbacks, they kind of forgot what would be the missing element. And so for the case of John Paul Getty III, the missing element will be koi water. And this koi water appears to be an essential useful God, which of course may or has turned into a white God. And so the remedy would be, if we look into literatures of the past and even until today's current practice, we do find that the missing element needs to be put into place. Therefore, the remedy is to introduce that missing element into your life. And so, if one were to advise somebody with this chart and to see that the remedy is to introduce koi water into your chart. So this person needs koi water and needs to introduce koi water because koi water is absent. So by introducing koi water, by trying to bring about an affinity of koi water can do two things. Koi water is a useful element to produce the day master, and water can weaken the seven killing. Because here resource is needed to weaken the officer. Therefore, it serves two functions: to medicate, to weaken the seven killing, and to, in a way, also to soften the seven killing, because water is the medication to avoid the clash between the seven killing and the day master. I mean, here we have the day master being the wood. We have the day master being the wood. The day master is the wood, and your seven killing is the sin metal. Therefore, water is to medicate. Water is to medicate, to arbitrate and to medicate, to come in between. Water weakens the metal. Water weakens the metal and produces and strengthens the day master. So this water is needed, but the water is absent. Therefore, we will find remedies to overcome. Now, as we look into past practices, now I am just sharing. Let me just say that I'm just sharing all these remedies. It doesn't mean that I believe in them or I would recommend them all the time, because I would still want to be persuaded by evidence, or maybe it's due to cultural or what you consider to be that you need more assurance for it. So I'm just sharing all the remedies. Then, of course, you will just deliberate and to see which remedy appeals. Because sometimes, when giving a long list of remedies, humans being lazy, they want shortcuts in life, they will then just go for the easy ones, and these easy ones may eventually turn out to be superficial or superstitious in their practice, that they might not see the meaning for it. But sometimes deep Right, these remedies do have some very deep spiritual or very deep psychological effects. Okay, let's take a look into one of the first remedy that is usually introduced even when the person is still a young baby, and that goes into the name, the choosing of the name, choosing of the auspicious name. So for the Chinese communities, there's a tendency that when a baby is born, they will then bring the date of birth to a person who can read the chart. Most of the time it's in a temple, and then the temple will assign a name according to the. And the choosing of this auspicious name, uh, actually, this topic itself is also worth a subject by itself. It is also quite complex in order to choose the correct name. The name will be to identify the lacking element, and the lacking element by choosing the correct character. The character will have to be phonetic, and also the number of strokes to indicate whether it's a yin or a yang and what elements will come in. But of course, now with pinyin and also to appeal to a global community where, well, you don't have a Chinese name, then how do we go about that? Okay, so anyway, like I said, this will be quite an ancient remedy that is still in practice today, will be to choose the name. Now, if you look at it this way, we do find that, let's say for Japanese, uh, they do have a name given to them when they are a child, and then when they become an adult, they are given another name, and of course, when they get married, they are given another name. Therefore, one of the great warlords will be find, like Hideyoshi Toyotomi. He was known as Konishi, he was known as Kuchiro, and therefore historians, when they read all these names change over the period, or even during the Tang Dynasty and so on. So they are so giving a new name, giving a new name, and this new name is given not just for once, not just for once, but these new names are also given for the passing of the luck cycle when you transit from water to wood. Or sometimes you may even find a transition from one luck pillar to the luck. Because for every transition to the luck pillar, more so when there's a transition of a completely different life cycle, and that's where the person suffer from midlife crisis. And so when the person experience midlife crisis, then there will be a very substantial change. There may be a name that is given. Why? Because when you change luck pillar, the useful gods, the medication, and the arbitrages will be different. Therefore, another name will be given. So so this changing of name has always been very pivotal. You change name from Saul to Paul. You change name as you move along and so on. Okay, so anyway, I cannot due to time elaborate any further than just this. But of course, there are always more books to read. Like I said, this how to actually choose an auspicious name is pretty complex by itself. For example, this is a very, very popular Chinese name, Li. Li is actually a Yang fire character. And of course, when you write this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so therefore, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the 8 characters. So therefore, anyway, for surname, we always plus 1, so it becomes 9, as it is. All right, so anyway, this will be just looking into how the characters are written, but there are also people arguing when the Chinese transit from traditional Chinese to simplified Chinese, the number of strokes and so on. But normally, the opinion is it is what it is when you write the name. So if you write the name in simplified Chinese, then the number of strokes is in the simplified version. It's all right for English speaking or for phonetic speaking, then this would be some of the first letter of your name. So if let's say we find that John, so John Paul Getty, so we find that John is fire, we find Paul is water, mm, Getty. Now this Getty or Zetty or Jetty, you have to be a bit more careful on how you pronounce. This G normally is a harder G for wood, and if not, then it might be something still along the line of J. But anyway, it just indicates that the first letter of your name, what would be the element? What would be the element that comes? Okay, so if John Paul Getty is born in a part where he has a Chinese name, so that's where very likely the name that is assigned to him will have Gui water, will have the yin water element in it. And so with the yin element in it, that name will then believe to then introduce Gui water into his life. Therefore, that would be the choice of choosing this name. Right. So anyway, that would be just usually the first remedy. The first remedy to have a name. The name that can be phonetic to bring about that change. Now, secondly, of course, we will then want to consider that to seek relationship, to seek relationships, and to seek people with Gui water, to seek people with Gui water. This is for John Paul Getty III. His missing element is Gui water, and so Gui water will be so if he can surround himself closer to or be with people that is Gui water. And what does Gui water represents? Gui water represents for John Paul Getty III indirect resource. Now, when you seek relationship, now in the past, where nucleus families are larger, extended families, where it takes a village to grow, to basically nurture a child, family members play a role. Now, what would be in the familial relationships for a male Yi Wood? So for a male Yi Wood day master, what would be Koi water? Koi water is the grandfather and also the father-in-law. Koi water would also be the grandson, but for a 17-year-old unmarried person, let's not take grandson to be something he can work on. And so it was his grandfather that refused the ransom money. It was the grandfather who did not find the urgency or the importance to come to his rescue. And the grandfather delayed the payment, negotiated very hard, and still refused to lend money, resulted in his ear being cut off and him being kidnapped for months. And so, this Gui water was wiped from his life. He wasn't married at the time, therefore no father-in-law, no grandson. So the only Gui water in his family will be represented by the grandfather, which did not come to his rescue. Now, if we are able to advise John Paul when he was young, I am sure that not not all person born, not all person born on 4th of November 1956 sharing this chart will all be kidnapped and have their ear cut off, except for this guy. But one thing, of course, the advice given to medicate his signal of chart is to fill up kueh water, and that would be the grandparent. Now, it's not easy. It's not easy to introduce an missing element, because when the element is missing, it means no affinity. And when you have no affinity, and to forge a relationship to which you have no affinity takes tremendous effort. It may even sound that you're not genuine. But if one can consider going back, if we can have a, if there's a, if you can reverse time and to advise this person, if John Paul Getty the third had make effort, make stronger effort to be closer to be affiliated and associated with people of his missing useful god. His kueh water would be his useful, and then perhaps with better bonding, with better relationship, the grandfather may have acted differently, and the outcome would definitely be very different then. Right. Therefore, this would be the case of remedy number two. Remedy number two, seeking relationship. And if forging relationship with the grandfather is near impossible, because the grandfather himself is also not a father figure to any of the children, yet alone grandchildren, therefore, other kueh water. And the other kueh water, of course, would then be what kueh water represents. Kueh water represents intelligence, it represents wisdom. But to find that when we look into the life of John Paul Getty III, we will find that his youth was pretty much a typical poster boy for the rich brat kid, whereby he was kicked out from many boarding schools, painting the hallway. So he was suspended. At the age of 15, he was suspended from so-called his school. It's demonstrated in left wing. He even posed nude for magazines, drinking, smoking, nightclubs, and supported himself and so on. He was even arrested for it. So all these things normally may denote a life without, a life without control, a life without wisdom, a life without that necessary nurturing support that can bring the person up. And because of all this exposure, that he was also make it easy for people to kidnap him. Therefore, kueh water would represent wisdom in his church. All right, now let's move on to remedy number three. Remedy number three, of course, would then be feng shui, to find the right direction. So once again, we then see that for feng shui solution, we then will then consider that the kueh water direction. So where is kueh water direction? Kueh water direction would be in the direction of entry, so north 3. So that would be a favorable position for him. If he can stay there, spend more time there, basically activate and put to be able to put metal there that can produce water, and therefore that would be solution. So sometimes we can say that we study Pakchi to diagnose. Pacha is used to diagnose. Feng Shui is used to solve, to overcome the problem. So this is remedy number three. So remedy number three is a feng shui remedy. Feng shui remedy in people relationship and so on. All right, the next we look into now look into activity. We look into the activities, engaging into activities, kueh water activities. So what do we mean by kueh water activities to John Paul Getty III? Indirect resource activity. So indirect resource is to think outside the box, unconventional. Indirect resource are suspicious. That's why they are good to be journalists. They're good to be quite spiritual because they are actually very suspicious. So therefore, to engage in activities that reflects what water element would, and therefore might find it difficult because there's no affinity. But once again, because it's a useful god, there is efforts that's needed to remedy the missing element there itself. Therefore, this would be remedy number. Now, remedy number five. Some critics would say that this is a new age feng shui. Therefore, it is a bit different from the remedy number three. Remedy number three is where we look into the correct direction. But remedy number five here is that, a bit more about that fountain, aquarium, water element to activate, to basically introduce. Now here we do find that metal can be used to produce water, and therefore that's where we may consider some environment. So these are some of the examples. But once again, we are referring to natural items, metal, mirrors. We're referring to natural stuff, candles, salt water, and so on. Not figurines or anything. So this is remedy number. Now remedy number six. Now remedy number six is to adopt adopt a particular type of emotion that can facilitate your decision making. So now of course here, when we look into the emotion to which each of these five elements represents, uh, take it objectively without seeing it as either positive or negative. I mean, the word anger uh, may give you the impression that it sounds like a negative word. Don't be angry. Parents always tell their kid, learn to control your anger. Don't be angry. Don't show your anger and things. Hmm? Or worry or grief or sadness or fear. But anyway. Uh, but of course, once again, this issue itself is also quite complicated, where we can go into how this emotion. So of course, I'm not referring to feelings. I'm not referring to how you feel, uh, even though that emotion gives you that belief. But this emotion is more towards how it is used to be the framework to guide your decision. To guide your decision. Whether you should be more assertive or whether you should be as it has what it would suggest. But anyway, once again, this one may require a few sharings on its own on how utilizing emotion. But at the moment here, for John Paul Getty III, he would need fear. He would need uh, to introduce uh, an emotion of fear into his decision. Fear is a protective mechanism. But of course, water and metal, when water and metal mixed together can cause depression. So when you are grief and sadness and metal, of course, too much metal, too much water may have this event. But introduce a bit of fear as a protective mechanism to make your decision making. Therefore, not to manifest so much on the other kind of an element that we may. Okay, so anyway, that would be just to look into it. And of course, if there is enough water into the person's element, then maybe some of these so-called activities may not have taken place. In a way, he was kidnapped when he was in a nightclub. And so of course, if you have certain emotions, you might not find yourself in a place to be so vulnerable. Another remedy now, this one is a remedy that is quite, some critics believe that it's just a new age without scientific evidence. But some believe, of course, that crystals and gemstones do emanate energy. There is some resonance, some vibration into it. Mm. And of course also find that there are also this is another completely different area altogether, but it's about selecting the right crystal for and putting the right crystal into the right zone. So putting into North Tree. So for John Paul Getty the third, the kind of crystals would be along the lines of aquamarine and so on. So these are resonation. Okay, so introducing crystals and another remedy, colors. Now these colors here will consider that each color each color is a reflection of certain frequency. So getting into the correct frequency for your element would also be one we can introduce your missing energy into it. Therefore, for John Paul Getty III, blue, black, navy would be the preferred color for the person. So the person should be into this color and not into the color. So blue, black, and so on. Maybe something along the line of has a remedy as well. All right, now let's move on to another remedy, the food. The food. Now, you may want to do an experiment on young children. When you look into young children, let's say, for example, my son is very strong in wood. He's a wood day master. And do you know what is his favorite taste? Sour. Huh? Sour. And I have a daughter that is a earth day master, and she, of course, likes. Okay, so anyway, we do want to consider that the five elements also represents taste. Now, this taste has certain TCM background. So there's certain TCM background about the kind of herbs, the kind of tea, the kind of medicine that comes into it, and of course they have some healing effects to your. So for John Paul Getty the third, perhaps, uh, if you can find the taste, try to eat something. But of course, please, I do not mean you just take 3 tablespoons of Himalayan salt every day. You might then, of course, suffer from another kind of disease. Please don't, Earth Day Master, please don't sue me for suffering from diabetes and so on. So, of course, all these tastes correspond with the kind of the element of taste that is needed for that element. All right, therefore this would be the case, or in a way, the remedy is TCM, the use of TCM in order to have the kind of taste that can then introduce the element into your body. Another remedy now, also on TCM, but we are referring to not necessarily Qigong techniques itself, but the activities that goes with it. If you are missing wood element, yoga, because yoga teaches you to flex your body and teaches you to expand your spine and to grow. Therefore, the exercise of flexibility would be one of wood. Fire, of course, is for the heart. Therefore, cardio, you need cardio exercise. Let your heart pumps fast enough. That would be the exercise for fire. Earth is more for grounding, more like calisthenic, more like building up your spleen, stomach into the area. Metal would be your core, and water would be fluid and adaptability. So indicating essentially things that things access like what do you call it like one of those Tabata type fluid adaptable Zumba. So Zumba dance will be fluid and adaptable dancing, kind of the area. But anyway, this would be the use of a traditional qigong exercise. So the 5 element qigong exercise, and to emphasize or to introduce this part. So all in all, these are the remedies. You have 1, 2, basically the right exercise. 1, the food that you eat. 2, the colors that you wear. 3, the crystals that you wear. 4, taste. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So altogether, there are 10 remedies in order to introduce a missing element into your chart. More so when that element. Now, if the element is not useful, don't bother. If the element is not useful, don't bother. Yeah? I mean, like pink fire. Pink fire doesn't need wood. Pink fire doesn't. The wood is to produce. Fine. But if there's anything that they don't need, then don't bother. But of course, if the missing element is something that you would really need, therefore that's where we have 10 remedies in order to medicate. So the purpose here is to medicate. To medicate the chart if the chart is sick. The chart has a missing element and it is sick. So for the case of John Paul Getty III, the chart is sick. Very sad, of course, for a person born to the eldest grandson of the richest man in the world at that time. But a tragic life nonetheless. Right. So therefore, the purpose of us learning Pachi is to be able to help people and to medicate the chart in order for the person to be able to change. I wouldn't say change destiny, but change the outcome where the Pachi chart can bring. All right, so this would wrap up on today's sharing. I will see from the majority of you whether there will be a sharing next week or not because of Qingming. If not, then this will be the part. J, if the UG is clash, could we activate what element? No. Then there are two. There are two. Remember, one is to, but this one is to medicate on missing element. Missing element. If the other one is to medicate if there's a clash. So in a way, you can say that the remedies are still the 10 remedies, but yeah, you then activate the different element. Correct. That one is to arbitrate. That one is arbitrate. Today is medicate. So today we talk about today is to medicate. If it's a clash, then this is to arbitrate. So arbitrate will be the last one, the last of the four, the last of the four types of useful gods. And then we'll see how we can overcome that. All right. So that's it for today. The sharing on 10 remedies on how to medicate a child. Not really just medicate on a missing element. All right, that's it for today. So I'll see you as in bed. Yeah. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you, and good morning to you for there.